old versions of Battlefront, where you have, you know, Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, and they, you know, totally changed the style and the look of the game for this game. You know, this is a very online-driven game. If you do not have online features, it may not be worth it. Now, they did add some offline content within the last couple months, which is good. This game is definitely driven by online gameplay, and that was one thing that a lot of people were complaining about when this game first came out, is that, hey, there's not enough stuff to do if you don't want to pay for online. And I still agree with that. But what's nice is that they've continuously been able to produce new stuff. We get new star cards, we get new maps, we get new outfits for characters, and all that stuff's free. And now, you know, they've included these expansions, which are, you know, if you have the Seasons Pass, you get all of them, or you can buy them individually. But if you have the Seasons Pass, you get this stuff early. I guess it's going to be another 2 weeks from today, at least, before people can buy this individually.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yeah, so if you have the Seasons Pass, not only do you get all the expansions, but you get them before everybody else. Like I said, we've had Bespin, and we've also had the Outer Rim. And this one, it seems... Ooh, I just got killed. This one seems pretty good, but like I said before, it seems like it's based off of this one game type. So if you really don't like space battles or being in a ship, may not be for you. Unless you just want to go into the interior of the Death Star and play Blast or something. But yeah. So what do you think, Dan, of the hero choices for this particular installment?
For this expansion pack, or for the game in its entirety? Okay.
For this expansion.
I think Chewbacca was a great choice. I was telling you off recording that I think he's long overdue. I feel like he should have been one of the first heroes to come with the game already. But I'm really excited to actually have the chance to read Chewbacca and see exactly how he works. But as far as a choice, like I said, definitely overdue. I'm glad we have him now, though. Bosk is a very awesome character. One of those characters that you don't know about, but are interested in finding out what he can do. And I think Battlefront will do a good job of capturing that for the Star Wars fans, seeing exactly what he's capable of.
Yeah, I agree. I know a bunch of people were thinking, oh well, what about old Obi-Wan? You know, he would be perfect for the Death Star because he was on the Death Star. I mean, Chewie was too, but he had a major role in you know, disabling the tractor beam, and that's where he had his battle with Vader, and you know, all this stuff. It's like, well, why don't we get old man Kenobi? And I was talking to a friend about that, and he made a good point. You know, they try to sort of keep the heroes pretty even for what's coming out. And I think the lightsaber wielding character for the that it might be a little bit off balance if they don't add another lightsaber wielder for the Empire. And they could have added maybe an Inquisitor or something like that from Rebels, since that stuff's all canon, but at the same time, I think they needed to have Chewbacca. You know, Chewbacca is Han Solo's best friend and trusty Wookiee, and you know, to have Han in the game without Chewie is also, it's just, it's not right. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's great that we got Chewie.
Yeah, and I just want to point this out before this match possibly ends. The TIE Interceptor has a new feature, which is laser barrage, which is a rapid shot.
The rebels are about to destroy it.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier. Well, apparently we didn't even go into the Death Star this time.
So this is definitely one of those modes where you gotta make sure that you have a good amount of time on your hands. You're not sure exactly how long it's gonna go either, because I mean, as you can see, our first match we got in the Death Star, almost got R2 out to go to the third phase. This one we didn't even go into the Death Star. So this game easily could be like a 10-minute match, or it could be a 30 to 40-minute match.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And it is similar to Extraction in that if you don't make it to a checkpoint or something, the game ends super fast. You know, it's like you said, you could be done in 10 minutes, you could be done in 45 minutes or whatever it is. So it's definitely one of those things that's like, you know, definitely make sure that you have enough time on your hands. And one other thing I wanted to point out too is going back to the heroes. You know, we get Chewbacca, like we were talking about, and we also get Bossk, who is probably, other than Boba Fett, one of my favorite bounty hunters that we get to see in the original trilogy for Star Wars. And, you know, I think that's something that is great addition. This blast here, this is cool. This is a new map. This looks like where the tractor beam was the tractor beam controls and things like that. But anyway, there's a long history between Bossk and Chewbacca. The Trandoshans and the Wookiees really don't like each other, and I think that's another reason why they wanted to add the two of them in there, because you know that long the historical hatred the two had for each other. So I think it's a great addition to the game as well.
Which makes sense if you're gonna have Chewbacca in this game. Like you were saying, to even up the heroes and villains, you want to make sure you have two different but also similar additional additions.
Nice fighting.
You're gonna add Lando, you gotta have someone like Lando, and for him it was Dengar, and we all know what he can do. And you know, I going back to adding people, another person I feel like we really need in this game, one that I'm really almost kind of throwing my hands up, is the little green guy.
Yoda. Yeah, I think, you know, they've been very consistent with the timeline. You know, some people may say, well, what about Jakku? That's in, you know, we get to see Jakku 30 years later in The Force Awakens, and so that's not consistent with the timeline of everything else that we get to see. So why do we not have Force Awakens characters in here and things like that? Well, this is my viewpoint on this. The Battle of Jakku, and for those of you who know the story of Star Wars and the Star Wars timeline, was basically the last battle of the Galactic Empire and the Galactic Civil War with the Rebels. It did take place very shortly after the Battle of the Second Death Star. It was the Empire's sort of last effort to try to regain control of the galaxy, and that's why there's a lot of broken ships and and, you know, a lot of debris and crashed TIE fighters and broken AT-ATs and things like that on the ground. So really, the Battle of Jakku was very close to the Battle of the Second Death Star. So the timeline really wasn't messed up there. And that's 19 years, or at least it's 30 years. Oh, that's a window. Can't go out that way. It's 30 years prior to what we see in The Force Awakens. So while Jakku wasn't really introduced to us until The Force Awakens, it does have historical significance in the original trilogy timeline. And so at the time of the original trilogy, Yoda, you know, he didn't really have a whole lot of fighting capabilities necessarily. And maybe that's another reason why they didn't put Obi-Wan in there. Now granted, he can still wield a lightsaber and stuff, but is he really going to be able to hold his own against, you know, the Emperor at this point in his life? I don't know. But it's just interesting, and I think the fact that we're getting Rogue One expansion, a Rogue One expansion on Scarif makes sense too, because the timeline's very close to the original trilogy as well. How did the Rebels get the Death Star plan that? So is that kind of like what you were thinking too, with the whole timeline and everything?
Yeah, that's how I interacted with Rogue One stepping in. I was a little, at first, for a little bit, I was thrown off by that. Like, why, you know, we don't have any expansions, or we don't have anything from Episode 7. Why would we have something from Rogue One? But then I realized, like you said, it's very close. I mean, it basically is the same timeline as Episode 4, 5, and 6, just right before it. And of course, we're supposed to see our the famous Darth Vader in that movie, which will be very exciting, even if it's just for a second. So I'm excited to see the expansion and see what kind of game type they will add to that one. Before we get
We're ahead of schedule.
quickly go into a different subject. Before this match ends, what do you think of this particular map?
Almost got this. Hang in there.
I like it. I think there's a lot of places to go. It's, you know, it's not like I don't feel like I'm getting lost, but I also don't feel like I know where I'm going either. I feel like no matter where I go, I'll end up finding people to shoot. So I think, you know, it's a good combination of not being too small, but also not being too big either. I like how they add the blast doors in there that open and close. So that worked out really nice. I did like that map. How about you? What did you think of that one?
I like it. It gives me the feel of Battlefront 2 with that Death Star map, because it did have the kind of those many bridges that
Places
you can
to fall
walk
off.
across. Yeah, exactly. That's really kind of what makes me feel. It gives it the Death Star feel for me, and I think that's a good addition, especially to this map. It'll be interesting to see what the other maps are. When it says 5 maps, I'm wondering if one of them is technically one in space, and then we have 4 maps that are on the ground, or if there actually is a 5th map that's
the
on
maps.
foot.
The maps are the Imperial Blockade, the Defense Sector, the Power Sector, the Command Sector, and then the Death Star surface. So I think the Imperial Blockade is the first space that we played, with the Death Star in the background and the Star Destroyers. And then obviously the Death Star surface, I think that would be the outside of the Death Star with the final phase of the battle station game type. And then the Defense Sector, the Power Sector, and the Command Sector, I believe, are the insides of the Death Star. So that's my take on it. Let's do one more here. Battle station. See if we can get to that third and final phase here, because it would be cool to check out the new hero vehicles and things like that as well.